ReefDudes is sponsored by Ecotech Marine and Bulk Reef Supply.
We're checking out the Tunze 6255 Eco/Hub Edition. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. So, flow in your aquarium is probably one of the most important things for corals. Now today we're checking out the 6255, which is a beast of a pump. It has the all-new cloud controller, so you can connect it up to Wi-Fi, control it remotely, set schedules, all that fun stuff. Or if you want to keep it simple, you can use the buttons on the controller. Now this thing moves a lot of water and it's Eco Edition, which means it's crazy efficient. So the box, we have our manual. We got our power cords for US and Europe, cable guard. The all-new controller. So this gives you either cloud or local control. Local, you can set your constant, your waves, your pulse modes. And if you connect it to the cloud, you can do a ton more online through a web browser. Now with this guy, we also have two different fronts. So if you really want that extra distance, you can have more of the cone of it, or if you want the super wide flow, you have those options. So it's really cool to see that they include the different attachments. And of course, the all-new pump design. So this is the motor, this is the brand new impeller design, and this is probably where a lot of the efficiency comes in with changing, a bit smaller impeller. You can see it's more aggressive pitch, and it definitely shows in how much water it moves. And last but not least, we have the magnets. Now these things are strong, so be careful. Do not let them suck together because you will have an issue getting them apart. Ask me how I know. And we do have our little standoff feet we pop in here just so it holds nicely on the glass. Now these are extremely strong magnets, so always be careful with your fingers. This is the beefier one, which I went with because I have 19 mil glass, so I needed the stronger magnet. And I think for now we're gonna go with the wider flow pattern. So we're gonna pop this guy on. There's a little notch out for where the cord clicks in. Squeeze the edges and it just clicks in. Now attached to our magnet mount, it just kind of pops inside. And you can turn it around, reach different areas of your tank. Now I think it is within about 34 degrees up and down, you have a fair amount. This thing is strong. So again, you don't want to be pushing too much at an angle because you might be trying to push the pump off itself. But you still have a good range of motion with it. Now all other flow pumps are off in the tank, so we're going to check it out with just the Tunze running. And I am going to aim it slightly towards the glass so it kind of bounces off and isn't directly against the corals. And you can instantly see it's about 50% right now how much flow it actually has. Okay, so with the stock controller, we can set up our pulse duration. You can do your min and max for it. If you bring it all the way down to 0% pulse, that would be constant power. And you can set whatever percentage you want for that. Now, in this case, we want to connect to the cloud. So we're going to hold down the mode button for 5 seconds, and it's going to set it in pairing mode. Now, in order to put it online, we first need a Tunze Hub account. So we're going to go to tunze-hub.com and sign up for an account. Once you have your account, we can join the controller locally. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold down this mode button for about 5 seconds, and then it will start blinking. When it's blinking, you can swap over to your Wi-Fi on your phone or your computer, and you'll see something that says Tunze or TNZ- serial number. You're going to join that Wi-Fi network, and the password for it is just going to be password. Then you're going to open a web browser and you're going to browse to 192.168.100.1, and that's going to be the built-in little web server for this. And from there, you're going to enter your Tunze Hub username and password, as well as pick your Wi-Fi. Join this, it's going to reboot, and then within a few minutes, it'll show up in the Tunze Hub Online. Okay, so my pump is now showed up in my Hub Online, and we can see right now it's on constant power at 41%. So let's crank it up to 50% and get kind of a happy medium. Okay, so now we're at constant 50% power. And you can see how much surface agitation, how much ripple, it's almost starting to splash out. I got to point it down a smidge more. But just taking a quick look at the flow in the tank. You look at the gonnies, they're moving pretty good. And the harder part of my tank is always the peninsula end. So this is the part that always gives me like the best kind of test. So if we come down here, you can see how much movement the torch has right now. So the tentacles are all over the place. This is 6 feet down the tank. Look at my little frag and it's all over the place. Come down, look at my hammer at the very far end of the tank. We're seeing good movement throughout all the polyps. The gorgonians moving around. Now the other part that's super cool, if we come back around the side of the tank, you can still see, we got good movement in the tentacles. We got all these zoas doing the kind of shimmy over here. And this is the complete opposite side of the tank with no flow, which means it's wrapping all around the tank, kind of like a gyre and coming back. And we can also see that with the clove polyps, because they're all facing backwards, so they're getting that gyre flow happening. And come over here, also same thing, the Duncan got a little bit of that flow sucking back up, same with the torches. So at 50%, I'm basically on constant gyro. I got a nice gyro circular motion. The one pump could essentially keep the whole tank happy, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna point this a little lower just so I don't start splashing water out of the tank. And I'm gonna put it against the glass a little bit more. Definitely feel some good power from that flow. And let's crank it up a little bit. So hopefully my corals can handle this, but again, you can see all the gonnies, they're all over the place. There's a lot of flow for them. And I'm gonna crank it up to 100% for a minute. Definitely just see what happens. There's a lot of action going on with the zoas, the gonnies, you know, probably too much for them, but definitely tons moving in the torches, all the zoas on the island. And the true test, walking back to the other side of the tank, again, those torch heads are all being sucked back, so 100% is definitely too much. But the fact is that it's wrapping flow all the way around in a big gyro motion. So definitely, when I was earlier, I was mentioning like there's a lot of flow. I wasn't joking, this pump really puts out a ton. Okay, so now let's try a couple other modes on here. Constant power, so let's try a fast pulse. This will be more like a wave action. And let's try going from say 3% to 50%. You can definitely see a little bit of a shimmy as the pump ramps up and down. So really cool, you can tune it, pick, you know, whatever your pulse time is. And right now it's at 0.10 seconds. Let's try like a 0.8 second pulse and see what that one does. In the top of the water, you can see the pulses. Now if you put it down to 0%, you can actually see it turn off in between. I usually like having it down a little bit, even though you'll get a better wave with it off. I feel like it's slightly easier on the pump if it's ramping up and down rather than off and on. It's probably negligible on a, you know, DC controllable pump, but. So I've been playing with the pulse a little bit and I'm starting to get like a really solid little wave in the tank, which is kind of putting a nice little pulse. You know, take a look at the torches, everything's having that nice like back and forth kind of shimmy. Definitely has the motion of the ocean wave going on. Really see when you take a look at the overflow box on the side, you can really see the up and down motion of the water. So it's a pretty good little wave. And right now, I'd say, you know, the whole tank is getting pretty solid flow, and it's only the one pump. And again, I was talking about efficiency. Checking this out, it's only drawing about 13 to 15 watts right now. So that's, you know, nothing for power if you consider you can run a whole tank of flow off of that. Now again, I'm obviously gonna have more than one pump just because I overkill everything. But the fact that you could so efficiently is pretty awesome. It's also doing a good job of breaking up any of the surface film. That's always an issue in peninsula tanks. On the far end, you know, you usually get a bit of stuff built up. And I've done stuff like alternating pumps or having one more higher than the other to let stuff slowly circulate and get off. I did have my pump was spitting bubbles out for a little bit there. I turned my ATO back on. There was a little bit of buildup and you can see it's cleared out most of it. So that's pretty awesome. You know, of course, and this is the complete opposite side of the peninsula tank. So it's basically wrapping around 6 feet and coming back and still got some decent motion over here. And a true hardcore setup, I think if you had two of them similar but had on either side, you know, every hour or two you rotated or had one lower, one higher and swapped it, would be a really cool thing to play with later. But yeah, in the peninsula tank, flow is always a bit of a challenge as stuff grows in. And I've been trying to hunt down for another pump to add to up the flow a bit more. And I think this guy is definitely a winner for that one. So on top of my team of MP60s, now the Tunze, there's gonna be ridiculous amounts of flow in this tank, which is gonna keep it happy long term as everything grows in more and more and more. Yeah, it's definitely some solid wave action. I'm sure I could tune this to make it even more intense, but at 5 to 50%, 15 watts of power, that's pretty solid water movement on, you know, 180 gallons of water, 6-foot tank. And coming up close to the tank, it is pretty darn quiet, which is always another huge plus in my books. Yeah, so I just want to give you guys a quick look at the Tunze 6255 Eco Edition and the all-new cloud controller. Super cool new product from Tunze, and again, I'm just super impressed with how much flow it is. 50% right now, the whole tank is moving. You know, it's only drawing 15 watts of power, which is awesome. And, as you know, I'm obsessed with battery backups. There is a battery backup port on this controller, which means I could power this directly off a 12-volt battery, or they sell like a battery backup accessory, which is basically like a a relayed switching device where you hook up the battery and your power, and if the power goes out, auto swaps the battery. So I'm going to pick up one of those and incorporate that into the new battery backup. So that also makes me really, really happy to see that feature. That's another big plus of adding, this new controller on a tank. So battery backup, super important. I'm obsessed with them. In fact, I'll probably do a video on one next week with a really sweet new battery that I'm going to hook up on here. But very, very important for keeping your tank running long term. Flow is the most important thing. And having a pump that is ridiculously efficient means your tank's going to run much, much longer on a battery backup. So we're going to test that baby out in the near future. All right, guys, as always, if you enjoyed this, be sure that like button. If you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.